In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn this coffee mug peg into this little guy or this one. Let's get started. All right, so here's the bag of mug hooks. Now, these are just standard hooks for mugs. If you had, let's say, a small piece of board, you'd put the hooks like that and you can hang your mugs. But in this video, we're going to turn it into a little figurine. If we turn the hook upside down, this is where I'm going to see is like the main torso. This will be the head, and I want to have a little bit of a pointy head. So I'm just going to simply cut this little piece off the top, and I'm going to use this sander to shape it a little bit. And all I'm going to do is just shape it into a point. I might put a little curve on it as well, and here we go. I like to actually spin it as I'm sanding it. It helps me create it into a shape that I want. So if I were just to do one side at a time, it'd kind of be a square. So I'm going to try and put a little bit of a curve, so I'm going to try and sand this part more. So kind of weaving back and forth like that. That little straight edge there, we're going to kind of clean that up. But that's just going to allow me to put a little bit of a curve on there. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put more of a curve on this. So I'm going to take this little sanding piece here. I got this at Harbor Freight. You can buy a pack of them for literally just a few bucks. I'm going to put it into the drill press, and I'm just going to try and shape it a little bit more. All right, so here's the curve. So I'm going to try and put the negative curve on this side. All I'm going to do is just try and shape it like this. We're getting there. Alright, so that's kind of looking like the curve I wanted. So now I'm just going to clean it up a little bit here. It's pretty much the shape I want. So from here I'm just going to get a little bit of sandpaper and finish it off. This is 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to try and give it a little bit more of a shape with this. Kind of clean up the rough areas there. Open this up a little bit. I can still try and create a little bit of that curve with this. And you can kind of sand it down as much as you want. I don't necessarily feel like it needs to be extremely smooth, especially since I'm going to actually be putting paint over this. But I do like it to have it somewhat smooth. So that's 120 grit. It already looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this is 320 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to touch it up a little bit more. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, just to get it smooth enough to your liking. So I kind of like the way that looks. This is what we have now. This is what we started with. This is one of the mug hooks. And this is what we currently have. So you can see how I kind of formed that. The torso, this is the head. And I've got that, a little bit of curve on there. So now the next step is to add the arms and the legs. Okay, for a piece this small, I like to use 1/8 of an inch dowels. And these you can get at any hobby store. I got this at Hobby Lobby. You can buy these off Amazon. They're extremely cheap. Usually you get a pack of maybe 10 to 30, and it literally is just a couple bucks. Because I like the figurine to actually be able to move its arms around and move its legs around, I'm going to be adding some joints on here so that the arms can move around and that the legs can move around. I'm going to make the arms about 3/4 of an inch, right about there, and then I'm going to make the legs about 1 inch long. So let's take it over to the bandsaw, cut the pieces off, sand it down a little bit, and then we'll put it all together. That's about 1 inch right there. I'll cut the first one. Second one, I'll just butt up to the bottom of that. I'm going to create the arms. These are going to be about 3/4 of an inch, just right about there, and I'll create 2 of those. Okay, so I'm going to make the shoulders and the hips any sort of a joint, whether it's an elbow or a hip or a shoulder, out of these little these right here. And these are for making necklaces. It's for making jewelry. I get this one. I got 300 of these for, I think it was about $4 or $5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description where you can purchase some of these from Amazon. 300 of these for just a few bucks. I'll also put a link to some of these mug hooks. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut these off, make a small piece, drill some holes, make the shoulders, make the legs, and at the very end we'll put the eyes on, and then we'll paint it. Now what I like to do is, first thing I like to do is kind of see what I want the front to be. And so I think I'm going to choose this side as the front, so looking at me. And what you have to remember is when you have any sort of a figurine, the shoulders are usually just directly below the neck. They're not way down here, so some people think that they can put them, you know, up here on the neck or way down here, but the truth is you kind of want to make it match what a humanoid would look like. So if this is my front, I'm actually going to make this be the neck right here. So this will be the neck. This is the torso, so the legs are going to go down here, and the arms, I'm going to start them right here. So I'm going to put a dot there for an arm, and I'm going to do my best to mark the opposite side. Usually what I try to do is I put my fingernail right there, and if it looks like I've got my fingernails even right where I have the dots, then that's where I'll make it. And then I put the legs right underneath the arms. So it's going to be kind of hard to see on the camera, but I've got the legs as a small dot here, another leg here, I've got one arm there, and then the other arm here. So the first thing I like to do after I create where I'm going to do it is I usually get one of these drill bits here that has like a point on it. You can use anything. You can use a thumbtack or push pin, anything that's got a point on it, because what I like to do is I kind of like to create a pilot hole. So I kind of put it right on my marking, and I create like a pilot hole there for the leg, another pilot hole for this leg. I don't know if you can see that I created those pilot holes there, if the camera's picking it up. Same for the arms, a little pilot hole for that, and a pilot hole for that other arm. So now I've got the markings of where the arms and the legs are going to go. Now I can actually drill the hole. Okay, so I'm going to be using the drill press to create the holes for the arms. But the other thing we need to take care of is creating holes inside of these small arms. This can be very difficult to do. The drill bit I have is a 1/16 of an inch drill bit. I'll put a link in the description where you can buy some of these off Amazon. You get a pack of, you know, the 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, moving upwards as well. And not very expensive, but it's going to allow us to create a hole inside of the arm. And that'll allow us to, once we create the hole, then we're going to be able to use this as a hinge. We'll take a second one, and it'll connect, and it'll act as another hinge. We'll be able to move around. Okay, so same thing with the arms and legs. We're going to put a pilot hole at the very end of it. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I'm putting a small hole right at the tip of that. I'm going to do that with both legs and with both arms. Okay, for this we want to be very, very careful. With any sort of tools, you want to wear eye protection. And if you have any sort of other protection, be sure to use that. On this drill press, I put in my 1/16 of an inch drill bit. I needed to buy this little collar here because the drill bit is so thin. When I put it in the drill bit, it would just slide in and out. So I had to purchase this as well. But once you get one of these, which is just a few bucks, it's great for all of your crafts. Now, I put this piece of green tape here so I know when to stop. And again, when you're doing these small dowels, you have to be extremely careful. So let's get started. This is where the pilot hole helped out quite a bit, because once the pilot hole is created, the rest is easy. You just stick the drill bit inside the hole and push. Right, but again, you have to be very careful. I like to make sure that my fingers are lower than what the drill bit would be, so that way if it goes through, I'm not getting my finger. Okay, so both arms. Now I'm going to do the leg. One of the legs. Looks good. And one more. So that looks good. Now, since I've got the drill press running, I'm going to do the shoulders and the legs. So first I'm going to start with the legs. And I always like to go kind of at an angle if possible. Since I'm using the hinges, it's not going to be a huge deal if they're perfect or not. There's one. There's another. Now the arms. Okay, one more thing we need to do before we attach the arms and the legs is I like to sand off the ends of the arms and the legs. Now you can just use a piece of sandpaper and just kind of sand it down. Now we're on to the next step, which is going to be creating the limbs, creating the shoulders and the hips so that the arms can move back and forth. All right, this part of the project takes a little bit of patience. Take a little bit of wood glue. You can use any sort of glue really, but I like to use wood glue. A little dollop of that. You don't need a whole lot, literally just a tiny little dollop. I like to take one of these, like I said, one of these little jewelry pieces here that are used to make jewelry. And if you look at, let's just do one of the arms first. How I drilled the hole that deep into the arm. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting this piece off about that deep, but a little bit extra. I do the extra because I like to fold it so that it sticks in really well. So I'm going to take my needle nose. It actually has a pair of cutters there also. I'm going to cut it off. And then I'm going to take the very tip of it and I'm going to bend it, squeeze that tight. So that's the piece that I have there. Now, this little, let me see if I can get this close to the camera here. This little piece here at the end is a little bit thicker than the rest. So that's going to create a little bit of tension inside of the leg, which will help it stick a little bit better. So what I like to do is I like to just kind of dab the edge of it in there. Dab it in the glue. And I'm just going to push it in there. Okay. The thing you also want to remember is which side was actually going to open up. So, because what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to actually open up one of the sides to hook it into the other piece. Example, these two pieces here, we need to open up one side so that we can slide the other one in there. And then what we're going to do is just going to close it back up. That creates the hinge. Okay, let's move on here. So I've created one of the arms. So now I need to do this for all four limbs. So now I have all four ready to go. As you can see, all four ready to go. The legs are going to go like that. Okay, so now I've got to do the same thing for the joints down here. So this one takes a total of 8 of these. It's always good to have more on hand though. There have been so many times when I've created projects like this, and if the wood isn't very soft, these will bend pretty easily, and then you just got to pull it out and put a new one in. So depending on how soft the wood is, will determine how many of these you need. And when I create these, I always like to use softwood. Now this is kind of hard to determine, these mug hooks, how hard the wood is, but usually when I create projects out of just blocks, I try to use balsa wood or a softwood that is easy to work with. Okay, so first, putting in one of the legs. I don't know if you can see that, but pushing in the leg. Now I'm going to actually open up that piece there so that I can slide in one of the legs when it comes time. Okay. So let me get all 4 of these. Again, these little jewelry pieces here, you can get them from Amazon. This pack I actually ordered from Amazon, but normally I go to Hobby Lobby, which is about a mile from my home, and I pick some up. I usually like to just go to Hobby Lobby and pick up all my supplies. This makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm pushing this one in here. Now, one thing you want to remember also is if you drilled the hole at an angle instead of straight, you kind of want to push it in at an angle too. That's going to help it so that you don't bend. See, there it is. I just bent it. See, you'll see when I push that in, it bent that at a weird. So I'm going to just pull that one out. No big deal. Like I said, you're going to go through these things pretty quickly. It's kind of on a rare occasion where I can actually, if I've got 4 limbs, I'm only using 4 of these. I'm usually ruining at least one. And, when I'm making, at Christmas time, I like to make Christmas ornaments. I make a bunch of Christmas ornaments. I've got a pretty big family. And I make them for the kids, for the wife, for everybody. And so I'm going through these things quite a bit. So here we go. I'm pushing it in. And then I'm going to open up that piece so that I know where I'm going to put the arm. I've got one more. Again, I'm just cutting about that much because when I drilled the hole, it wasn't too much more. So I'm just cutting it off, bending it so that the whole thing is going to fit inside of the hole that I drilled, folding it over, smashing it tight. Okay. And when I use my needle nose, I usually take the bottom of the hook, the part that's going to open. I usually like to put that at the bottom of my needle nose so that way I know which direction I put it in so that when I open up the hook, it will open up easily. So I'm going to push that into the arm joint, pushing it in. There we go. And then I'm going to open up the hook. So I've got all 4 ready to go. I'm going to start with the arms, I think. Put the first arm in. I like to turn it upside down so that when I close the hook, it doesn't fall out. So there's the first one. Do the second arm. Now I'm using a little bit smaller pair of needle nose. You don't have to, but I just like to use the smaller pair. Just easier to get inside there, right? Okay, there's the arms. Now let me get the legs. You're just closing the gap. That's all you're doing. So there it is. There's our little guy. And I actually, now you don't have to, but I actually like to put a hole at the top because I like to hang them. Especially if you're going to make it into some sort of an ornament or something that hangs. My daughter likes to take some of these and hang them from her rear view mirror on her car. She'll have a little figurine. Sometimes they can just be hanging from a cabinet or a doorknob, something like that. So you don't have to, but I like to put one on the top so I can easily hang it. The next thing we have to do is add the eyes. So I like to use for some of these crafts, I like to use just standard sewing needles or sewing pins, I should say. So I kind of raided the sewing kit for some of these needles. And I'm just going to use black ones for black eyes. Take 2 of those. And the way it's going to look is, you know, I'm going to have the figurine, and I'm going to have the eyes that are going to look something like that. So one thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to actually determine where I'm going to put the eyes. I'm going to drill the holes for the eyes. Then I'm going to paint it. Then I'll put the eyes in last, because once you put the eyes in, it's going to be very difficult to paint around the eyes. Okay, so here's our piece here. And this is going to be the front. I'm going to make the eyes somewhere around here, I think, because this is supposed to be the neck right here. This area here is the neck. So I think the eyes need to be here, for me at least. And I think I like the eyes to be one here and one right out there. I think that's where I need to have them. Nope, that's not, because it's not even with the arms. So let me erase that. One good thing about woodcraft is that you can easily erase. I normally like to use the white eraser on wood. Especially after you've painted something. Sometimes I'll take my paintbrush here and I'll paint a color on there, and then I'll draw a face on it. But if I mess up, I can use the white eraser. It comes right off. All right, so the arms are here. So I'll put one eyeball here, another eyeball here, I think. So I'm just trying to make sure that the eyes are going to be even. That's all. I think right about there. Clean that up. Try and get a feel for what it's going to look like. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so now I'm going to use my drill bit to create those pilot holes I was talking about. You can see I put the hook on the top as well, because I do like to have it hanging. So for those of you who don't necessarily want to have the hinge style arms and legs, I created another mug peg figurine. And this one I'm going to just put the arms in, no joints. It's just going to be straight out, straight out. So I'm going to drill the holes for this. This is a 1/8 of an inch dowel. And so I'm going to get an 1/8 inch drill bit, drill the holes, and we'll go from there. But what I want to point out is, if you're going to do this style, what you want to be sure of is the angle of the arms and the legs. So if you take a drill bit, if you want the legs to look like that direction, make sure you drill that direction. Because if you drill this direction, that legs are going to stick straight out. The arms are more tricky because of the shape of the body. So you have the tendency to want to drill this direction. And yes, if you want the figurine to be going like that, that's perfect. But if not, you're going to want to drill down a little bit. So what I like to do is I like to start the hole a little bit and then pull it back so that I have the direction that I want. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. For the legs, it's going to be easy enough. I know that you can kind of use the drill bit as a tool also to see which direction you want the legs to be. I want the legs to be this direction. So I'm just going to drill the hole like that. I probably went up to about there. Okay. The arms are a little different. So here's my pilot hole for the arms. I'm going to need to start the hole there. And then I like to, once the hole is started, kind of bend it to the direction I want. Okay, so that's what I want right there. I'm going to just kind of sand off some of this excess wood that kind of started to splinter just a little bit as I was drilling the holes. I got my glue. Just going to shove it in there. I sometimes just like to wipe it off with my finger just so there's not too much excess on there. The other thing you want to check with the legs and the arms is sometimes if the hole is drilled a little deeper, and the two dowels are the same size, one will go deeper. In this case, I think I got them right. Sometimes I have to pull one out a little bit just to make sure that it's not longer than the other. The arms, the same thing. Just going to shove it in there. Let me wipe off the excess. There's the last one here. It's upside down, of course. And I'm just shoving it in there. So you'll see in this case, this arm looks a little shorter. So I'm going to have to pull it out just a little bit. See if I can push that one in more, maybe. Ooh, that one went in a little too deep. I think that's about right. So now I'm just going to let it dry. I've got the eyes already drilled out. I'm going to do everything pink. I'm not going to do legs separate color or anything like that. Everything is going to be one color. Usually I'll put a couple layers of paint on here. So this one with the movable arms and legs, I'm going to make him blue. I don't need a whole lot, just a dollop. So now I've got some blue here. Now for these, I usually like to start with the arms and legs. This is where my fingers always get paint on them. Not a huge deal. It is water-based paint. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I talked about the paint at all. The paint is acrylic paint. So acrylic paint is water-based. You can get acrylic paint at any hobby store. Hobby Lobby is where I go to get my paint. Once the paint is dry, and you want it to be all the way dry, then you can actually draw a mouth on there. So I like to draw it in pencil first. Just in case I mess up, then I can easily erase it, right? So that one I think is good enough. And after that, then I'll do it over again with a piece, with a thin marker, like a thin Sharpie. I'm going to put his mouth, let's see how it looks like that. I think that's good enough. So all I do here is I just trace the line that I drew. There it is. Now, before we actually put in the eyes, one thing that I like to do, you don't have to do it, but it does add a layer of protection, and it also makes your project shiny, is some gloss. So this is actually a satin varnish made by Deco Art. You can get it. I got this one at Hobby Lobby. This is a bigger bottle. I got it for $8, $7.99. But this thing has lasted me a very, very long time. Same thing. I always like to start with the legs. And the gloss is just an added feature there. It does really make it look so much better because it's shiny. And by the way, for gloss, I usually like to put no less than 2 layers on there, but I usually put 3 on there. 2 is if it looks good enough, but I like when my figurines or these little wooden guys are nice and shiny looking. They just look so much better. So that's why I like to put 3 layers on there, because the more gloss you put on there, the shinier it is. Sometimes I will actually not put the arms and legs on until after all the paint is on. And the reason why I do that is, like, you can kind of see, well, maybe you can't see, but gloss gets inside of these little hoops here. And it dries that way, and then they kind of get a little bit sticky. And so you can, after it dries, you kind of have to, separate a little bit. But in the past, what I've done is I have actually painted everything and then put the arms and legs on last. Okay, so right now we have the pink figurine and the blue figurine. They're fully glossed. They've got 3 layers of gloss on it. I'm just letting them dry. Once they dry, we're going to put the eyeballs on, and then if there's any accessories you want to put on there, you can put those on as well. Sometimes I'll put some ribbon on there to make it look like a scarf. I also have this Santa hat. We can put one of those on if it's Christmas time. There's a lot of different things you can do. So let these continue to dry, and then we'll finish up. We're almost done. Okay, we're at the final stages now. Now the only thing we really have left is to put the eyes on, And then, like I said, if we want to put a scarf on or anything like that, we can do that. So I've got these needles out here. Like I said, these are sewing needles, or sewing pins, I should say. I kind of raided them from our sewing kit. And they're going to just go right in here. So if I just kind of stick them all the way in, I can see I've got that much space. So what I need to do is cut this so there's about that much space. Now, one thing I want to warn you is, like, when you snap this, this piece is going to go flying. I usually like to hold both pieces and then cut it. That way I can take this and discard it into the trash. So here's one. I'm just going to make sure it fits before I... Yep, it fits. And let me just continue that for all of the eyes. I just dipped this little eye inside some wood glue. Just shove it in there. And I'm going to push it. Stick it in the eye socket. I push it tight. There's one thing. Put it in the eye socket. And I push it in. Okay. There are the two figurines. You know what I said earlier, we can actually add a few things onto it. So again, I like this Christmas hat. I got this at Christmas time. I think I got this at Hobby Lobby, but I've made plenty of the Christmas hats from felt. Just a red piece of felt and a white piece of felt and one of these little pom-poms. They're so easy to make. In another video, I'll show you how to do that. But if you wanted to put a Christmas hat on, let's see, he would look like that. Right, that's kind of cute. Or another option, whoops, put the one on the blue guy. That's kind of cute. Push on a little tight. Another option is if we get some of this ribbon here. So I've got some leftover ribbon from Christmas time. And let me cut off just a piece here. So you can also add a scarf. Push him over to the side. You can add a scarf. So let's see here. I might have cut this too short. Let's see here. So the way I like to do it is I like to fold it in half, wrap it around his neck, and if I can do this, slide it through the loop, and it'll look something like that. But this is what they look like, right? They're pretty cute. I'm going to take the hat off of him for now. They're pretty cute. A quick and easy project, fun to do. If you have children, you know, this is a real fun thing to do. They're small, they're easy. Your kids can help you create them. They're great for Christmas ornaments. They're great for little decorations just around the house. Another thing you can do is you can actually make refrigerator magnets out of these. But there it is. There are the two little guys. I don't know what to call them. I don't know if they're little icicle guys or star people, but I think they're pretty cute. I hope you enjoyed this one.